Every visionary has a story to tell. These stories educate and inspire us all.
You could hear them cranking up in the morning and hear the click, click, click of the roller coaster.
It's really feeling satisfied and feeling gratified with bringing happiness to young children, especially families.
Working with people who are having a good time is so much better than any other job.
Join us as we learn from these trailblazers.
At Coney Island, when I worked through the years there, the management team liked me, and they kind of brought me along a little bit as I grew older into the college routine. And then when I went to college, I came home and worked with them, with Coney Island, as in the winter, recruiting employees for Coney Island. So I went out to the universities and I worked there, bringing in students to work. And that was primarily the last job until I graduated from college. I still continued to take the tickets and be admissions, but they were grooming me for something else. And I'd been there so long, when I graduated from college, they offered me a full-time job. And that full-time job evolved into assistant park manager at Coney Island. That was 1969-70. And so I was the assistant park manager for the last 2 years, and then while we were preparing to build Kings Island. When we closed the park on Labor Day 1972, the park manager, a fellow by the name of Ed McHale, and we were responsible for moving everything from Coney Island to Kings Island because we were vacating the park. So from knives and forks to the sky ride. We took it all. The flume rides, the sky rides, tore down the Shooting Star. That was a sad day. Yeah, so went up to Kings Island and integrated into that team that was building the park, so we were there all during construction. We located that park perfectly, and start with that. We had Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, Louisville, Lexington, and Indianapolis. We situated ourselves off of I-71, which gave us ease of access from all of those major metros, and that was planned. And it was a 2.5-hour drive from the furthest, which would have been Indianapolis. So we had all of those markets to draw upon. It was no longer a local park; it was a regional park, and that was great. And our design was just fabulous. I mean, prior to Kings Island opening, the Randall Park design, which is a fabulous design, but it was a very tightly wound kind of design, very narrow streets. Our pathways were very wide. We did ours was somewhat the hub and spoke effect, but a little different twist on it. But no one had ever seen anything like International Street before other than Disney's Main Street. I was at Kings Island, and the team who left Coney Island went to Kings Island first, started that. That was Gary Walks and his team. And then when we closed Coney Island, we took the Coney team, went to Kings Island, and that Kings Island team then went down to Richmond, Virginia, and started planning the Kings Dominion project. Well, I was at Kings Island in the beginning, Kings Island the second year, and then I started flying back and forth between Virginia and Cincinnati. At Kings Dominion, we did the same thing. We went in and started planning that park, and then that team stayed. Gary Walks came back to Cincinnati, and I became the general manager. We opened King's Dominion in May 27th, I think, of 1975. Actually, before that, we'd opened Lion Country Safari, and we had drawn 675,000 people. So it was enormously successful, and the anticipation for King's Dominion was building, and that was really our test market and our preview showcase for King's Dominion. And so we opened that in '74. Then opened the park in '75. When we opened the park in '75, I'll never forget it. Route 301, Route 95, and Route 1 all parallel one another, running north and south from Washington and up north down through, right through Virginia. On opening day at 10 o'clock in the morning, we were going to open and have the official ceremony. I went up on the Eiffel Tower. We had an Eiffel Tower there also, and still do. I went up on the Eiffel Tower about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we had traffic backed up 10 miles north and south on each one of those corridors. We had already opened the gates. We had 40,000 people in the park at 10 a.m. and another 50,000 waiting. And I had helicopters and state patrols. It was so jammed up. I closed the park before I ever opened it. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't let any more people in. I closed the gates because we were so packed. And that was a problem, actually, we lived with for about 4 or 5 years, because people thought it was that crowded all the time, and those who were there had a horrible time. My association with the IAAPA began in 1970 when I came to my first convention in Chicago at the Sherman House 36 years ago. And I was just in awe. It was amazing to go to the first convention. It was so tiny, but I didn't know. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. We were right in the Sherman House. You could cover the entire floor in 45 minutes. And you'd do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. It was very small. I think there were about 1,500 people attending. And I started out like a lot of people, participating in different roles. I was Sergeant of Arms for my first official task asked to be done by the association. And then I participated in the workshops and probably participated in every workshop there was, gave a speech through the years. And then as we moved out of the 70s into the 80s, and it was taking on the role of a general manager of a major theme park, King's Dominion was the second most expensive park built at that point in time, behind Disney World. So we got a lot of look-see and a lot of interest from the industry in us. And so I went on the board of directors, I think, in 1981, and served again on a lot of every committee. I think I've served on and chaired every committee there that they have in the industry. Probably one of the most dramatic was when we moved Bob Blundert out, who was our executive director, and we brought John Graff in. We just needed more horsepower, and Bob had certainly filled the bill for the mom and pop kind of industry that we were at that point in time, but we felt we needed to have a presence in Washington, D.C., and so we hired John Graff, who was an attorney with the Marriott organization. We interviewed 4 or 5 people, narrowed it down to 2, and John got the job. We knew we needed a Washington presence for all the lobbying and issues that we were facing, minimum wage and a lot of different things. it was a transition, all fueled by growth. I think we have to regenerate that entrepreneurial spirit. I think we do need to reinvent ourselves, and on both a vertical and horizontal plane, multi-disciplines and integrations of different ways to create these revenue streams. So we'll see. We're a successful industry. We are going to generate 750 million visitors by 2008, and we're going to generate 25 billion in revenues by 2008. So still a pretty successful industry. I remember sitting at Kings Island in 1972, and we were talking about pricing for the future year. And when we opened Kings Island, our pay one price was $5.95. We talked about raising the price $1, $1.50, and we said, you know, we'll never break the $10 barrier. Just can't do it. Nobody will pay it. Will not happen. Well, of course, now it's $50, $60 to get in these parks. Pricing is an issue with our guests. And there are some who think in the industry that it isn't. I happen to think that it is. And it ties into another reason. There's disposable income and disposable time. And the disposable income is still there, but the disposable time is lessened. And back when I was running the parks in those 70s and 80s, Mom made the decision. She said, we're going to Kings Island on July the 18th. She made this in June, this pronouncement. And everybody will meet. Now it's, what can we do tomorrow night or tonight between 5 and 8 and have a good time and do it as a family or do it as a mother and son or whatever. And it's just different. So for people to go out and spend the kind of money that they have to spend to get in a theme park, the times have changed, and it's difficult to harness that family as a unit